Alright guys, I just scored this 4200 watt contractor generator by trading a jigsaw that I acquired for free. So, I have no idea if this thing runs, all I know is the motor turns over, but it seems complete, so we're going to run through this, see if we can get this thing going, and then I'm going to pimp it out. Alright, like I said, the motor does turn over, so that is the first good sign. If a motor turns freely, you have a good shot of getting it running. Now we'll pull the dipstick, and as you can see, the oil in this thing's really dirty. I'll make sure I change that before I get this thing running. Now I don't know exactly how long it's been since this machine has been running, but the guy I got it for said he's had it for years and he's never had it running, so the gas is definitely bad, so we gotta drain that out. Alright, so right under the tank on the top of the fuel line here is your shutoff valve, so I'm gonna turn that clockwise to shut the fuel off. Next what I'll do is I'll disconnect the hose where it goes into the fuel filter here, put the hose into the bucket, and then open up the fuel valve to let all the fuel drain out of the tank. Alright, the fuel is flowing freely out of here, so I'm just going to keep holding the bucket and let it drain completely out. Alright, next we'll pop the air filter off and see what kind of condition that's in. Well, it definitely looks older, but it doesn't look too gummed up and the inside's not that bad, so it'll be okay for a test run, but I will eventually get a new one in here. And the next thing we'll do is we'll pop the spark plug out, see what kind of condition that's in. Alright, so I just yanked the plug out and it actually does not look like it's in that bad a shape. The gap looks fine, it's not too scored, doesn't have a lot of carbon buildup, so we'll use it. So the next thing to do is remove the carburetor. This has been sitting with bad gas in it for a long time, so it's gonna be gummed up. So there's two bolts, one right here in the back. It's one big Phillips head bolt. You have your idler arm attached right here. You also have a fuel line. I did put some rags down here to catch the rest of the fuel that'll be sitting in this line. Alright, so I'm not kidding you, this is the state of the carburetor. All of these old gasoline deposits just poured out of the bowl when I took this off. So you can see it is completely gummed up. The float, I can barely move it because there's so much debris in there. And even the fuel inlet valve right here is all gummed up. It looks orange and red. So I'm going to completely disassemble this thing. I'm going to get some carb choke cleaner in there. I'm going to blow it out with air. And then we are going to reinstall and see how we do. Okay, it took me a good while to get this thing completely clean, but I got it ready to rock and roll. Had to do a lot of brushing, scraping, soaking in carb cleaner, and then a lot of compressed air to get this ready to go. But now it's time to pop her back on the generator. Okay, so I did just reinstall the carburetor, and I just did a thorough oil change, and boy, did this thing need it. Now, the oil level is right in the middle of the add and full, nice and clean. So we're one step closer. Okay, so far, we drained the old fuel out of here, we completely cleaned the carburetor, we made sure we had a good spark plug, we did a thorough oil change, and we checked the air filter, which is okay. The last thing to do is get some good fresh gas in here, see if she starts. Alright, we got fresh gas in this baby, I got the choke on, we have the engine set to run. The last thing to do is give this a few pulls and see what happens. Alright, so we did get it to fire up and run very shortly, but one thing I noticed, there's something inside in here rattling around, so I wanted to shut it off before it caused any damage. And also, after it sat for a couple minutes, you can see this huge pile of fuel. So, I got fuel leaking out of the carb. It's probably because the float needle is not seated properly, so I'm going to have to remove that and inspect and try to get that seated. Okay, so clearly I have this thing propped up. That is because I could not get the float needle to seat properly and it's just leaking fuel out. So why didn't I just shut the fuel off? Well, turns out the shutoff valve, the fuel shutoff valve, is also bad. So I ordered a new carburetor on Amazon. It comes with a fuel shutoff valve and a new primer bulb and even a new spark plug. So we're just going to put new products in it and just be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to clean this baby up and make it look good. Alright, you want to know what was rattling around in here? It was a screw. Literally a Phillips head screw. What the hell? Alright, it's a couple days later and the Amazon kit came in. Here is my shiny brand new carburetor. and a primer bulb, which I will attach to the frame after I paint it. And we have a shiny new fuel filter and a shiny new spark plug. All right, now it's time to see if all this work did the trick. The choke is on. I already primed it a couple times. We'll see if the Chinese carburetor did the trick. And I also have this light plugged into the back here. We're going to test to make sure both 120 outlets work. Let's go! Alright, now we got this thing running perfect, so it's time to pimp it out. My plan now is to put a wheel kit on this and some handles. So, I have these old wheels off an air compressor that I had restored and put different wheels on. I also got these weird brackets, or whatever you want to call them, probably from a tent or Easy Up or something. I'm probably going to cut these to shorten them and then bend the handles down to make some good handlebars. And then to level it out, I have actually an old bed frame that I'm going to fabricate a piece down below to level it out after I put the wheels on. Alright, so I basically have all the fabrication done on this. Let me show you what I did. Alright, so as I said before, I fabricated these handles out of an old Easy Up frame. They work well. I welded them on nicely, and I think they're going to be good handles for this thing. So here's what I did with the wheels. So this bolt goes through the wheel, and then it screws right into this nut. I had an extra square nut, and so what I did is I welded the nut that came with the wheel to this square nut, and then I welded the whole assembly on here, and now it just screws into place. Alright, and here is the foot piece that I fabricated. This is an old piece of angle iron that was actually the correct length to match the width of this generator. And then from there, I just measured 2.5 inches down and cut a piece of angle iron, welded it to this piece of angle iron, and then to the frame, and did the same on the other side. Okay, so we got this thing running perfectly. It produces electricity. We have handlebars on. We have our wheels on there. So the last thing to do is to clean it up and paint it. Well, here it is, gang, the finished product. I gotta say I'm really happy with how this thing came out. I think painting the frame and the handlebars and the wheels black, I think really made this thing pop. And although the paint on the actual generator and the motor is not perfect, it's original, and I really didn't want to have to take all that apart and paint all that. I think this really makes it look great. And the last thing to show you is the primer bulb. I just used a zip tie to fix this in place here so it's not hanging on the ground. Hey, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was a fun video for you, and I hope you liked my pimped out generator.